Oh, that's cool, even though it looks stupid. Oh, yes!
It's the last scene of the Water Boy when the Hail Mary's in the air and the dude's just like,
Welcome back to another edition of The House at Allenville. This is episode 30. I'm Scott Kinmartin, and with me, as always,
Greg Vollmer.
we're going to talk about the 12-3 Buffalo Bills taking on the 8-8 New England Patriots in Buffalo.
Recap.
Yeah, well, now the Bills are 13-3, and the Patriots are 8-9 and out of the playoffs. Let's go over our predictions. The Bills were 8-point favorites, right? The over-under was 44. It hit the over.
It hit the over.
And your prediction was?
My prediction was 43-13 Buffalo. I got a little too big for my britches.
43 is close to 35, but you were saying they were going to win by 30. And
Yeah.
maybe if we had a couple catches go our way and we didn't throw a pick in the red zone, we would have gotten closer. But I digress. My prediction was 31-17 Buffalo, 14-point win, and we actually won by 12. The final score, the Buffalo Bills 35, the Patriots 23.
Good prediction. You were close.
Thank you. Now let's celebrate. Let's have a little celebratory
Bills
shot.
Mafia, not only a celebration of life, a celebration of back-to-back-to-back AFC titles, a celebration of sending the Patriots packing 2 years in a row.
Yes.
Life don't get much better than this. Take it a day at a time and enjoy it. Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
To the Buffalo Bills. Man, the only thing better than a shot of Fireball is a shot of Fireball after back-to-back-to-back AFC East titles.
Yeah. Well, you know what's even better? If we beat the Patriots, then we go to play the Bengals or host them. Then we got our revenge on the Chiefs. Then we take on either the Eagles or the 49ers or the Cowboys.
1 week at a
or
time.
somebody.
Yes,
I know.
For fans,
Hey, you were hoping we won by 30. I'm hoping we go to the Super Bowl.
for fans and media, you can do more than 1 day at a time, but even fans shouldn't get too far ahead of
Nope,
themselves.
we should not, because
We got to win a game.
You know,
to get to the
I would
next
have been a
round.
little bit more nervous if we were playing Tua this week with Miami. So Miami ended up becoming the 7th seed. That's who we play this week. We will get into that in our next episode. We watched it where it was a barn burner between the Jets and the Dolphins. It was 6-6. We needed to see what was going on. I was hoping for Pittsburgh.
Man, poor Steelers fans.
We have a friend that was a Steelers fan at the bar with us watching. They won. They did everything they could. They got Tomlin his winning season again for 16.
I'm give a round of
years
applause
in a
to
row.
Mike Tomlin. What a future Hall of Famer coach, an absolute stud, a leader of men, and a ruthless competitor that would not allow his team to go below 500.
And a former teammate of the one Sean McDermott.
Yeah, this whole week we got a lot to be thankful for. Think about that 13-3 record that could have been 14-3. It could have been, it could have been 13-4. Yes. Soak it up, because we are experiencing what the team that we just sent home used to experience. That franchise, that fan base. I made a slight joke in the beginning of last podcast, saying, you guys in New England lit your stadium blue and red, so now F off. I do want to say how awesome. I want to commend Patriots fans and the fan base and the organization. They have been nothing but classy over the last few weeks.
You know, the whole league has.
And quite frankly, Patriots fans, Chiefs fans are making me hate you a little less these days. I do want to say thank you for that. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. But now to Bills Mafia, soak it up and don't take it for granted. I know Patriots fans right now, many of them are probably thinking that they took those years for granted. We are in the middle of a beautiful moment in time with all these awesome players and this core group and this awesome base that's been built up with an awesome GM and coach. We can't take it for granted. And 13-3, for years we were looking at that, sitting on the bottom of the stairs, looking up at the top.
Years. This is the next generation
the
90s, the early 90s
Yep.
Bills.
And we are in the middle of it now, and now we're on top of the staircase, and the Patriots are on the bottom looking up. So just don't take it for granted, and let's just enjoy this wild ride.
While we talk about, the camaraderie in the league and the love that's been shown to not only Damar Hamlin, but the team and the city. But Hamlin has been released from the hospital in Cincinnati. He was returned back to Buffalo, where he was at Buffalo General, and Kaleida Health was looking over him. They did evaluations and testing. Come to find out, he got released and is now back home. I think that's amazing news, and he's expected to make a full recovery. Whether that means he ever plays or not is another topic for another day.
In a 9-day span, it went from shock and awe, not knowing if the man was going to survive, getting to the hospital, to being released from Cincinnati, then transferred to Buffalo and being released from Buffalo Hospital, and now being in the comfort of his own home. Shout out to the whole family, the Hamlin family, and I tell you what, he's probably spending some time with his younger brother right now, and you want to talk about never taking anything for granted? Like,
the reason why he stayed in Pittsburgh and played there in college was because he wanted to be there for his younger brother, who's only 7. So he's 24. You know, there's a gap of 17 years, but their family's close, as McDermott and Bean have learned over the last week and a half. It's just great to see. I mean, we had our own Thurman Thomas and Steve Tasker and Will Wolford and Jim Kelly hanging out together, supporting their number 3 gear. And
the 3 hats, the hat that everyone was wearing.
That's tight. That was from New Era. They came out quickly.
I was looking up. I was trying to buy one today, and I couldn't find one.
No doubt, it was probably just like a team exclusive thing.
I'm really. It looked.
I think they'll come out with something. I think they will, especially now that we know not only did he survive, but he's walking. He was walking around the hospital since Friday. It's unbelievable.
I had my credit card out and ready today, and couldn't find that 3 hat.
I did too, and I got these for us.
Yes, sir. Look at that, Eastern Division champions.
Now, that's a positive note talking about Hamlin going home, but what's kind of being swept under the rug was just a couple days prior, it was the weekend of New Year's, John Murphy, who does the play-by-play and used to be the John Murphy Show, and then it became One Bills Live, which Tasker was his right-hand man, and now Tasker's the main guy with Chris Brown. Chris Brown had to fill in for him.
And then Eric Wood joined John Murphy.
He does he does every week. So every home game, Eric Wood is doing the game with Murphy. Now he did it with Chris Brown, and he's the color commentator. But the play-by-play was Chris Brown. He was there to make that call for Nyheim Hines' opening 96-yard kickoff return, which is adrenaline pumping. You could just see Allen. He didn't know what to do with his hands, either one. And, you know, those men in that locker room are men of faith, and it was confirmed in their eyes that was just meant to happen. They rallied behind Hamlin, who, you know, they did a Zoom call with him, and he it's just cool with the technology to be able to do that now. And he's tweeting from his bed. And McDermott, after the game, was asked if he had seen the photo that Hamlin posted in pregame. Of course, he didn't because he was coaching. But it was Hamlin with his mom and his dad on his side, and he's wearing the 3 shirt, and he's looking, and he looks tired in his eyes, but he's got the heart there, right? And McDermott choked up. And then in the post-game interview with Josh Allen talking about that play, he said,
I can't remember a play that touched me like that, I don't think, in my life. So it's probably number 1.
How about the second one?
It was just spiritual, and I was going around, and I was going around my team saying, God's real. Like, you can't draw that one up, write that one up any better. And I was just told by Kevin Curran, it's been 3 years and 3 months. Since the last kickoff return, so it's pretty cool.
3 years and 3 months, and they did it for number 3. And it was just, after the first one was 96 yards, then Hines does it again for 101 yards.
And if that doesn't go to show how much the team means to each other as brothers and players, you've got a guy like Josh Allen who's, the story's been written and it's now well documented, his come up and his struggle to try to get attention at the D1 level.
Yeah. 1,000 emails and letters.
He's had himself a storybook chapter to try to get to where he is now.
Yep.
But that play right there will go down as, like he said, probably the most impactful. And
it summarizes what we've had to deal with for the city.
We were sitting in a Buffalo Wild Wings downtown Portland watching that game with one of my good friends, Jake, and his wife, Sam.
You guys were watching? It's because they went to SDSU and they were watching the FCS championship.
We were going to go to the Cheerful, which was the backers bar, but we wanted to watch my alma mater, Jake and I's alma mater, South Dakota State. They won the FCS championship. Yep. Shout out to South Dakota State. They upset. Well, they didn't upset. They finally beat the North Dakota State Bison.
Yeah, it was their first national championship. Well, second, but first winning.
And I thought that the Buffalo Wild Wings was going to be pretty packed. And
oh my God, it was dead until halftime.
It was, and I'm sure Bills fans from Buffalo are like, well, there's a reason for that because
it's
screw
Buffalo Wild Wings.
But we held the place down. But I now after what happened and transpired in that first play, I was telling Scott before the podcast, I would give up a lot of my Josh Allen cards that are worth a decent amount of money to go back in time and be a part of that and hear how loud that stadium was, because I know even though we could hear it on the broadcast and you've rewatched the game and you can hear the crowd and there's people's cell phone footage, none of it does it justice of being there and having the goosebumps and feeling it.
It's the polar opposite of when Hamlin got injured. It was dead silence, right? People were concerned all around the globe, but you could hear it in that stadium when they're trying to talk and fill dead air, how concerned everyone was. And then the dichotomy, right? The polar opposite of that would be that opening kickoff, which was electric. 96 yards.
It was 96 yards of pent-up concern.
And Hines has only been with the team half the year.
Sadness.
Yeah.
Depression. Unknowing, unknown. It was all just this pent-up energy that got converted into 96 yards of poetry of Nyheim Hines returning that touchdown.
The Bills offense, they needed that because they only scored 3 touchdowns in this game, all coming from Allen, passing. But
the deep ball finally connected again.
It did. John Brown was 1 of 1 for 42 yards and a beautiful diving catch. It reminded me of like 2020 John Brown, but it was weird to see him in number 16. And that's because you reminded me.
Josh Allen did the smoke celebration, which the last time we saw him do that, I think, was the wild card against the Texans.
Yes. Yeah. John Brown's number 16 now because Jake Kumerow's 15, who's been on IR and working his way back. I think he might be past the 21-day window where he's supposed to return. I really don't know. We'll get into people returning from IR on the next episode because I'm hyped. There are 2 guys that could potentially lead this team through the playoffs.
Yeah. No longer a spoiler alert.
No. Okay. So Hyde is maybe playing this year, and Jamison Crowder, who's been injured with a broken ankle most of the year, is fighting his way back. So if they make it far enough, they'll be available. Nyheim Hines, he had a second one for 101 yards, and that was 2 kickoff returns in a single game. It only happened now 11 times in NFL history. And he has actually returned 2 punts in the same game with the Indianapolis Colts. So now he's the only player in NFL history to have 2 kickoff returns in a game and 2 punt returns in another game.
There was a lot of chatter amongst Bills Mafia, at least of what I saw on the interwebs, that what did we get Nyheim Hines for? He hasn't been in the running game. We haven't been using him as a running back in the slot. Dude had himself a day. Nyheim Hines, unbelievable.
Well, with Hyde being out, we couldn't use him on defense for fourth down, receiving punts. So when you have Hines back there doing both, it's unbelievable. Now, you have Shakir who could also do that, but he's a rookie, still a little uncertain. He had a nice catch in this game. He had a nice little, like he kind of shifted his shoulder under and got around the guy in coverage. And he looks like he's coming on. He's got confidence, and we'll see next season if he can do what Gabe Davis did his rookie year, but in his second season, because he didn't have as many opportunities.
And isn't there a story behind the celebrations, Nyheim Hines?
He did the little like this and then kind of put his arms out like you would see Dion Sanders do, right? Now, Nyheim Hines, one of his favorite players was Dion, and he was number 21 with the Colts. He couldn't get it with us because he obviously, couldn't take it from Poyer. And he said as long as he's with Buffalo, he's probably not going to have number 21 because of Poyer. Which means Poyer, who's on a contract year, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe he's implying that, the Bills will or should keep Poyer, which is pretty obvious at this point. But, yeah, that was for celebration.
And a fun little fact, I admire Nyheim Hines for doing the Dion Sanders primetime celebration. Because back in the day when I was a little youngin' at Wilson Elementary School in Rapid City, South Dakota, when I was playing some good old two-hand touch on the old beat-up field at playground.
Yeah, that's awesome.
During recess on the playground. And I would always love to return kicks. And I kid you not, it was mainly because of Dion
track
Sanders.
Star over here, yeah.
And I would do the whole high step and then the whole flick. That was kind of the
yep.
And that was
Allen does that. He kind of rolls it after a first down.
And then also the the LaDainian Tomlinson made that
LT,
famous.
yep.
But also Dion had his own little touch too of where he would do the high step and then he'd do the dirty bird dance.
You remember he had the bandana,
Man.
like the handkerchief?
He was all swag.
He was total
was,
swag.
Dude was absolute, like 100 level charisma and swag and confidence. And,
He was recently interviewed and he said,
That's not my natural odor, baby. I don't know. I know you may, if you get close to me, it's gonna smell like Dolce, but my natural odor is winning. It's confidence. That's my natural odor, and that's what we're gonna do.
the coach of the Colorado Buffaloes now, he's going to carry on that swag and he's going to have some of those guys transferring from the portal.
Yeah, the Colorado Buffaloes, look out. He's going to build that program into a contender.
And it may be right away, but even if it's a couple of years, look what he did already down south.
Maybe he'll end up doing better than TCU did if ever make it to it.
Oh my God, the Horned Frogs! It was cool of them to beat Michigan and like make it as far as they did. It was like the Cinderella story. 13-1, you make it to the finals. Then you get absolutely slaughtered, 65-7. They had no answers for Georgia.
It was absolute worst case scenario for them because they just blew open the conversation for why Alabama should have been in there, and that's exactly what they didn't want.
Nick Saban was doing the show.
It was
and they were talking. And one of the guys said,
worst case scenario for TCU happened.
I mean, they were obviously exposed to being smaller, not as powerful, not as fast. I mean, Georgia's basically, people have made this debate for years. Could the best college program beat the worst NFL team? And I still say no, but Georgia's got some damn good players. Last year, they had like 5 first-rounders. The guys that were behind them are basically going to be first-rounders this year. Their defensive end, I think it's 88. The dude is a stud. He might be the number 1 overall pick.
It was George Kittle or Travis Kelce that got interviewed, and they were quoted asked that same exact question, and they said, "Hell no."
Yeah, it's
no. Even the best college team could never beat the worst.
It couldn't because of the size, the speed. I mean, I thought we were good in high school, and then I got to college. It was a 1AA school first.
You know what?
And that was a wake up call.
I don't necessarily think it's about the physical part of it, though. I see a lot of these college players, and it is a feeder league to the NFL. I think it's more mental. I think it's playbook. I think it's experience. Mentally knowing where to be.
When they say the game slows down in the pros, what that means is you know what to expect. You can process things faster, which slows it down for you to be able to see everything and react. That's what it means. So when you get to that next level, you're not getting a couple guys sprinkled in that run a 4.3, 4.4. You're getting everyone running a 4.5 and under. Even the linemen. Think of
and I get that part of it, but you watch college players these days, and they have to end up putting in time in the weight room once they get to the NFL. But I still think that the mental part of it is the more important part.
How many busts have there been for quarterbacks alone? They can obviously throw the ball, but can you read a defense, call a play, call an audible, process what's going on around you, and complete a pass? That's important. I mean, we've seen Allen miss people that were wide open. We've seen him not even see them or not and executing with what the defense gives.
Even Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes.
The best of the best are going to
You watch enough of the tape, they'll miss people too. It's just that they do enough good things that you don't focus on that.
Well, Joe Burrow in this last game, he did the no-look pass. It's not just Mahomes that can do it. Allen's done it. What is it? Matthew Stafford has been doing it for years, but because Mahomes is Mahomes. Anyway, back to Nyheim Hines. He was AFC Special Teams Player of the Week.
Yeah, we got on a tangent there.
So when Nyheim Hines did the 2 punt returns, that was in 2019, and that set a record now. But it's been 13 years since someone has ran 2 back for a touchdown in the same game, and that was in 2010. Now, the Bills were down by 3, and then he had the 101-yard return where 3 guys missed him.
Yep.
One thing that was really cool to see was in the pregame, they actually did a recognition for the amazing medical staff and athletic trainers for the Buffalo Bills and league staff. That was really cool to see. And then at halftime, my high school football coach, Jim Dupre, who's actually the defensive coordinator at the time, I always felt like he was more qualified. But Jim Dupre, he got his guys, ready every single game. He's a U.S. history teacher, right? And he would scare the shit out of people sneezing in class. He'd go, "Achoo!" And I'm like, but it's
especially during a test.
Well, yeah, he looks like a drill sergeant. He was honored at halftime for being one of the coaches of the season for Section 6 in Western New York. And props to him. There's a photo of him being on the Jumbotron.
To Jim Dupre.
I always believed in him, and he's done a lot of good things.
I feel like the Pat McAfee show here clapping.
I
Shout
know.
out to Pat McAfee.
But Jim Dupre is a hell of a guy, and he always believed in me. And as somebody who was always a defensive-minded guy, he knows the offense very well. Unlike Matt Patricia, who may or may not be making play calls on offense next year. Yeah. The defense this game was led by Taron Johnson, Matt Milano, and Edmonds, who both had interceptions. And then Jordan Poyer, who had the most tackles, and Gregory, who had our lone sack.
It felt so good to see Tremaine Edmonds finally capitalize on a pick, because he has, over the last 2 years, there's been some griping about, there's been some griping about, is he in position most of the time? Why doesn't he make the splash plays with turnovers? And he's been close to getting picks before. He finally was right there, and he was in the exact right spot, and he didn't drop it. It was just.
While we're talking about Edmonds, who I think we should resign, but he's going to be quite costly now, because the Ravens had breaking news this week where they signed an extension with him, with Roquan Smith, another linebacker in the league, who came over partway through the season from Chicago because they didn't want to pay him because they knew they were going to have to pay a lot of money. 5 years, $100 million. That's $20 million a year, and $45 million is guaranteed fully, and another 15 is guaranteed in other ways.
So just like Deshaun Watson reset the quarterback market, now the linebacker market's been reset.
That is true, and it's going to be tough, but I hope we can afford it. And if not, then maybe some of these guys that we've drafted over the last few years that have been fill-ins can do something, or free agency, right? But that's for the offseason for us to worry about.
Yep.
Right now, I want to talk about this game. And one of the things that sucked, because my alma mater, UCF, which is where Gabe Davis went, he had amazing hands in college. And he's struggling a little bit here and there. 2020 and 2021, when you break down the stats, are almost identical. He literally had 63 targets, 35 catches each year. And then this year, he obviously jumped up to 93 targets because he's actually got a starting role now rather than being filling in. And his completion percentage dropped 4%. And a lot of that has to do with those extra 30 targets. He only caught 10 of those passes. That's 33%. That drops your numbers down for efficiency. And why I say that is, in this game, he would have gotten over 100 yards and a touchdown if he had caught in a bomb that bounced off his shoulder pads.
It was right there.
Even if he was covered, the ball was right there. And he's dropped a couple. Like I said, he does this like sidearm or sideways catch. And in this case, he was doing like a breadbasket. And it didn't work. It sucks. I hate to see him struggle like that. But his numbers, obviously his yards were up. You know, his rookie year, he had 599. His second year, 549. But he had 7 touchdowns and 6 touchdowns. This year, 7 touchdowns. So he didn't have any more touchdowns. But like you mentioned before we got started, he probably would have had 10 touchdowns and 1,000 yards.
Easily.
Yeah.
Had he not had the 50% catch rate, close to it or a little over it, he would have definitely had that kind of a season. And it's in him. And
for sure,
one reason I'm not going to panic, and I think there are some Bills fans that are panicking. They're like, oh my God, wide receiver 2. What is our wide receiver 2 situation? We're about to start the playoffs in a very pivotal year. We've got a month to go, and it's all on the line. I'm going to relax. I'm going to hit the old Aaron Rodgers button and relax, because we've seen Josh Allen playoff mode get engaged. Well, the last 2 years, I've seen Gabe Davis playoff mode get engaged. We saw what he did against the Chiefs in that wild card game at home. We saw what he did against the Colts. Against the Colts in the wild card game at home, where he had, it seemed like, a half a dozen toe tappers, which impossible catches. Then we saw what he did last year in the divisional round in Kansas City. He had a playoff record 4 touchdowns and over 200 yards. So look, I'll be concerned if we get through the playoffs and he continues to struggle, but I do think that he has a button that he's going to, push, or a switch that's going to be flipped. And I think that we need to just kind of remain calm. And now we'll see. Now the real season does start. And so let's see what he does in the next 30 days. And then we can panic if it doesn't work out after that.
Yeah, I'm not too worried. With Davis having a hot playoff last season, we know what he's capable of. He had those 4 touchdowns in one game, like you said, over 200 yards. And he could do it again. If he has 4 TD receptions, let's say, hypothetically, the Bills play the wild card round, the divisional round, the AFC Championship. That's 3 opportunities for him to score 4 touchdowns. If he does, he'll be in the top 10 all time for postseason touchdowns.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. And that, again, that's hypothetical. That's hoping that we get to the championship, but it is totally possible. And he's one of those guys that Allen believes in. He had just as many targets in that game, 10, as Diggs. Diggs was just able to, do more with his opportunity.
I don't know the psychology behind drops. We talk about Knox a lot because he will make impossible catches
and then drop,
and then he'll drop something that to the common fan that's watching, to the eye test, it's like that looks like it could have been caught by a high schooler or a college player, and then they make some crazy catches. I don't know what happened psychologically, but I think Davis is kind of similar. He will have these drops, but then he's got some kind of competitor in him, and I don't know, maybe it's the pressure gets amped up and he doesn't want to disappoint Allen or his team or the coach, and maybe his struggles weren't as highlighted last 2 seasons as they were this year in the regular season. But I just feel like he has that competitor and he doesn't want to let his teammates down, and he can switch it.
Yeah, I mean, Allen clearly believes in him. Like I said, he's getting the targets, and like you mentioned Knox. Knox does these puzzling plays where he does incredible things and then he drops it. Keep in mind, in college, he was a converted quarterback, and he didn't even have
barely
a touchdown.
Caught anything.
He didn't have a touchdown.
It shows why he's such a good blocker too, because that was what he worked on.
He's strong,
and so blocking wasn't really something he had to fine tune. It was his catching.
When we talk about all the things that the city of Buffalo and the team has had to overcome this year, right? We talk about the shooting at the Tops grocery store. We talk about the weather and the deaths, and then the Bills having to play an extra game in Detroit, and then we talk about the Hamlin thing. Sometimes we forget that Knox lost his brother this year to suicide. That's just another thing to go in this Hollywood journey. And I really just hope...
Hey, this is not Hollywood. This is Buffalo journey.
I know. But I'm saying that this could become a movie that's, produced.
They wouldn't do it justice.
Probably not. But you know what? I want to see something that's a little more uplifting than the Four Falls of Buffalo, that are a reminder of the heartache that we had to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to talk about missed field goals. I want Tyler Bass to bring us a Super Bowl.
Speaking of everything that the city of Buffalo's been through, and then this just anything outside of the sport that's happened to the team and to the city, there's been some chatter. And yes, I do look at other teams' blogs, and everyone's got their own forum. And you can say that they live rent-free in my head, that's fine. But I always like to get a pulse on not only our fan base, but some other fan bases, especially when controversial things happen. Or I gotta bring this up. So the reason why I wanted to give some respect to Patriots fans, and it's a fan base I've had animosity towards, because they've always had what I wanted, and it's like there was all this winning, and they gloated, and they were entitled, it seemed like.
Silver spoon, as Brant would
call it. Silver spoon.
It's like KC fans.
Now I feel like KC fans have kind of gone that way. There's been a lot of chatter amongst specifically Kansas City and Bengals fans that they're already starting to bring out the A word. And I'm not talking about hole. I'm talking about asterisk. They're already talking about, oh man, the Bills, now that Hamlin's better, now we got to bitch and moan about what happened with the league making these rules on the fly. And
it's not going to matter when we play the Bengals anyway, just because it's not in Cincinnati.
Look, the Bills didn't have an opportunity, just like the Bengals didn't have to get the 1 seed, but the Bills had a better chance to get the 1 seed. You cannot argue that.
And both teams had beaten the Chiefs in the regular season.
The Chiefs, Chiefs had it the best out of every scenario that happened based on how things rolled out after the unprecedented canceled game. And Chiefs fans found ways to complain. And both Chiefs and Bengals fans are already getting ready. If we somehow raise that trophy at the end of the year, they want to add an asterisk to it. And for that, I say kindly f*** off. If the Bills raise that trophy at the end of the year, I got lots of pages worth I can come up for reasons why we earned every fucking bit of it. And every team goes through stuff every year, but any fan base can't say that if we end up getting through this month journey that we're about to embark on and we somehow raise that trophy, you can put an asterisk by it for yourself and try to get through the offseason and justify whatever the fuck you want to justify. We earned every fucking bit of it if we end up raising that trophy. I had to get that off my chest.
I think we've got more now than ever support. With the Hamlin thing, I think it's a feel-good story, and I think, people are rooting for the underdog. And the blue-collar city like Buffalo is something that I think teams should root for, and fans for other teams. Maybe there are 32 teams in the league, right? And there are how many that make the playoffs?
14.
Yes. So that leaves,
used to be 12,
that leaves,
which I wish it stayed the same, because the whole one person,
Sure.
one team gets the bye.
Yeah, you're
and
saying
you get
that 'cause we were the
and you
number
get a
2 seed.
limping in, shouldn't even be there, kind of 7 seed.
But at the same time, those are the ones you have to worry about. How did you lose this year in your
7,
fantasy football
yeah,
league?
but 7 seeds haven't done anything since they've reformatted.
Okay,
So-
I mean, maybe there's an argument there, but at the same time, you're saying there's a chance. There's a chance.
Yeah,
9 and 8
it's more
team
money,
like the
it's more
Dolphins,
games.
if
it's
they had
more,
Tua,
it's more
could upset
commercials,
us.
it's more advertising, it's one more game to add to the docket.
It's a business,
I know,
man. This is a
I know.
business. You know, if we can get back into talking about money
Yeah.
and a business, now that gambling is a thing and it's approved and you can pretty much gamble anywhere in the U.S., Gabe Davis had that drop in the end zone, which cost some dude named Dylan on Twitter who did a 10-leg parlay. You like to do your parlays. He did a free bet, but it was a $5 bet, but he got it for free. It would have been $21,203. It was plus 21,203. He would have won thousands of dollars.
At least it wasn't his money. At least
No,
it was
that's true. But it's like, damn, dude, you have it sitting
Yeah.
right there.
If you're a glutton for punishment and you want to use your own hard-earned money, try to do parlays in the NFL and see how that works usually. Especially if you want to do money line parlays or just try to straight pick teams any given week.
If you're going to do any sort of prop bets or a bet this week, I would bet on Josh Allen lighting it up because he always does. Even though we lost to them once this year by 2 points, he does well against the Dolphins. And the Dolphins without any quarterback, I mean, all they have to be able to do is throw it to Tyreek or Waddle, and they should have a chance to score touchdowns or at least get first downs. They're good at yards after catch. They could throw it 3 yards. You don't even have to throw bombs like everyone criticized Tua for not being able to do. And he proved otherwise. But Josh Allen is the one that you want to bet on. He threw 62.2 yards in the air across his body for, a 49-yard touchdown.
He had
to
Tony
Diggs.
Romo blushing.
It was unbelievable. And to see something like that, it was the third longest completion by air distance this season. And Allen has a league-high 5 completions that travel 60-plus yards in the air since entering the league in 2018. It's awesome to see when you get someone like John Brown, who was elevated from the practice squad, catching balls, and then he takes that football, after he scores, he has the mindset, the frame of mind to go over to Denny Kellington, who is a guy that performed CPR on Damar Hamlin, his teammate, and he gave him the game ball. That's what type of team this is, and how could you not root for them? If you're one of the fans of the 18 teams that didn't make the playoffs, why would you not root for the Bills? You know?
Yeah, I mean, you could have your reasons, but...
You could, but I'm saying this is the year to be doing something
And also
like that.
mention the man that ended up riding with Hamlin.
Yeah, Tabani Richards is a guy that stayed with him in Cincinnati the entire time, and on Friday when he called in and did a Zoom call with the team, he was the one that dialed in. He was there at his side. He came back to Buffalo with them. And Bean had stayed in Cincinnati with him, too, throughout the week. So, Damani Richards was somebody who's now getting national attention. Not only did Kellington and the rest of the staff, but that's one of those unsung heroes that it's just great to see that this team has the right guys in place, for sure. He's an assistant athletic trainer, but regardless of the title, he's an amazing person, and I'm glad that he gets some recognition.
From the owner, GM, coach... all the way down to the cafeteria staff, there's just good people set in place.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And if we get into the betting stuff, right, we start talking about Stephon Diggs, right? If he scores a touchdown, Bills win. I mean, it makes sense, right? But they're 9-0 when he scores a touchdown. And then Jordan Poyer, every single game that he's played in and started, they've scored or they've won. So those two guys, offense and defense, you've got polarizing players that are captains that lead their side of the ball and do great things. So you can't really bet against them.
Yeah.
If we're going to have a game, it's going to be those guys that we rely on most. Really.
And I don't have to say anything else about Poyer that I haven't already said. The dude,
I know, amazing.
It's
Oregon
unsaid.
native. Yeah, he's just a great dude. Our offense overall, like I said, they struggled, and the special teams with Hines picked them up, but they still were able to get some yards. They had 327 total yards on 58 plays. They did have 2 fumbles.
Motor fumbled.
Singletary
and
fumbled.
He's got a track record. I didn't realize how prevalent of a track record it is, and I've been a little biased towards him, but that it seems to be the one bugaboo is that he's got a decent paper trail of fumbles going back from college and now the NFL.
I can't believe they went 15 straight games with 100-plus rushing yards, and they chose Week 18 of the year to get 90 yards.
Yeah.
Now, Allen lost some yards doing the 3 kneel downs at the end of the game, but that's like 10 yards, and that would have been 100,
so close.
whatever. It was close. I mean,
and Motor, like there were some people calling for Motor to really not be on the field during the playoffs, like bring him in maybe as a third down back at best. I don't agree with that.
He's proven with the yards per carry that he's reliable. It happens.
Some people's reasoning are that in a pivotal moment against, say, the Chiefs or the Bengals, if he fumbles, then you can't forgive yourself. But I still trust him to be a compliment to James Cook. And yes, he needs to hold on to that ball. Wow, you just said compliment
rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
So you're saying they re-sign him and that Cook is the RB1?
I'm not gonna. I still don't think that Motor gets re-signed. But I'm just saying that he's got enough experience and he's got enough respect in that locker room that you don't just drastically cut off his production.
I like him. He's a hardworking guy. He's a little undersized. He's shifty. He doesn't have breakaway plays, but he's reliable.
Maybe they had him holding on to the ball during practice this week. Just hold on to the ball. Take it to the bathroom with you, shower with it, go to bed with it, have some dreams, wake up.
It only helps so much. Well, usually
give it a little good morning kiss.
Go
make some breakfast while holding it.
When you're prone for fumbling, it tends to linger with you. There are things you can do, but really, it happens. I mean, you're carrying the ball, single carry, one time a game. No, 13 to 15 times a game generally.
Fumbling wasn't that much of an issue until he did it again, and then it makes you look back, and you're like, oh, well, last year or the year before that, and then you start looking at his total statistics over his career. Yeah. But before that, it wasn't that big of an issue.
No, I mean, he went to
Cook was the one that was the issue. He didn't see the field after he fumbled.
Stop.
No,
that was
his
first carry, and it was literally the only one all year.
And then he was in the doghouse for a little
carries,
bit. Yeah, no,
I know.
I know.
One. That was one of those flukes where it happens to other guys that are now in the Hall of Fame. Anyway, I understand your point there.
We don't need to talk about fumbles anymore.
Nah. Let's get into Allen. He was 19 of 31 for 254 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have one inexplicable pick across the middle in the red zone. Again, at first, they were trying to make excuses that he got bumped. He didn't. It was just meant to go. I think he was going for Davis right in the back of the end zone, and he just went way too short, and it went right to the linebacker, I think. It was pretty weird. But Diggs, 7 of 10, 104 yards and a touchdown. Brown was second with 42 yards and a touchdown. Davis, 3 of 10, 39 yards.
Yeah. He's as mad as anyone about that. He looks at that 3 of 10 and he probably wants to puke. So
he actually has a jugs machine with the football. And in the offseason, he's
they documented it in that series, embedded.
Yep.
I mean, he's
the Bill series.
He was at his house with his family member, just training in his spare time.
I'm telling you, he will be fine. It just, it's still only his 3rd season. Look up some of these guys.
Playoff Gabe Davis. We already talked about it.
Yep. McKenzie had 19 yards on 3 targets, and Shakir, it was nice to see him running routes a lot of times out there. He only had 2 targets, 1 catch. Like I said, it was a 28-yard play that looked really nice. I think he's come a long way from the beginning of the year. He's gaining confidence. Then you had Cook and Singletary, who gets a catch here and there, right? 3 yards, whatever. As far as the rushing, Cook actually had 9 rushes for 45 yards, which is a 5-yard average. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then Singletary had 7 rushes for 29 yards, 4.1 yards per carry. So when you're averaging 4 or 5 yards each, that's great. Now they only had 16 carries. Mac Jones throwing 40 balls, and they didn't run much, even though their average was good. That's because they got to play against the Bills. That's the thing you're going to learn, that the game script for these offenses going against the Bills defense, it's going to have to be pass.
The perfect scenario is get a 7-10 point lead and then try to continue to get the run game going and take advantage of the time of possession.
Yeah, and
that's what you'd like to do.
Some coaches, even when they're down, like to bring in and the run game and keep going because I think the Packers tried to do that against us. And even though they were getting yards, they ran out of time.
Yeah.
They wasted 6 minutes when they could have scored with Rodgers, who is lethal. That's where you have an offensive coordinator or head coach that can really dictate where you go in a season. They can limit their players and what they can do. The whole idea is to keep the ball out of a Rodgers' hand or Tua with the deep ball and things like that. And anyway, it was nice to see Dawson Knox get another touchdown. Now, he didn't even have that many targets. I think he had he was 2 for 2 for 13 yards, but his 4th consecutive game, like I mentioned earlier.
He did the...
Yes, yeah.
Did the I love you.
Yep, I love you right
Damar.
into the camera. It was really cool to see. And six touchdowns on the year, 4 in a row. I'll take it.
Yeah, he came on strong because the first half of the season, again, it was like he was on the milk carton.
Yeah,
it's like, where is he?
Yep.
So,
and special teams, of course, we mentioned already what Hines was able to do, and then Bass hit all 5 of his extra points. Martin had 3 punts with an average of 41.7. Nothing special, but one of them was inside the 20. Not bad. Now we get to the Buffalo defense. Poyer led all players with 9 tackles. Marlowe had 3 tackles. Lawson had 3. White had 4 and an interception.
Mm-hmm.
First one back since his injury last Thanksgiving. Yeah, it was really cool to see. Milano had 8 tackles and an interception. 2 passes defense. Edmonds had 7 tackles and an interception, 3 passes defense.
Milano had the pick that sealed it.
Yeah. And Taron Johnson, who I will pound the table in saying that he's the best slot corner in the league. They're out there in nickel and dime for a reason because of him. So that's when you've got 5 DBs on the field. What are you going to do when you've got Mac Jones throwing 40 times against, DBs like that? Taron Johnson is just a stud. Mm-hmm. And then Rousseau, who Brant had predicted would get a couple sacks, or maybe I did in Cincinnati, hoping that he'd come on. He got our own lone sack. So we're getting pressure, but we're not executing the sacks.
How many total sacks does Rousseau have now?
He led the team with 8, and Von Miller had 8 as well.
He's having a career year.
It's a good season for sure. Epinesa had 6.5 to be, which is second, because a tie for first is Rousseau and
Rousseau's not having this type of year without
Von Miller.
Von Miller in that room.
Yeah, no, it's nice to see, and Basham is decent. He always has a tackle here or there. He'll get in and sack somewhere, but I mean, you had Oliver 1 tackle. Jackson with the tackle.
And Oliver is still having a great year, too. I mean, they're all doing...
Oliver's one of those defensive tackles, not a defensive end, where he plugs the hole for the defense against the run, but he's also batting passes, getting pressure. He's not going to be on the stat sheet as much as he's going to be there.
He's the reason that we were able to get rid of Harrison Phillips.
Yes, and Phillips had a nice season for Minnesota, and they're obviously in the playoffs, and I'm rooting for him to do big things. He still has his stuff back in Buffalo, his charity, so that's really cool. As far as New England, they had 6 more plays than the Bills with 64, 341 total yards, which is barely any more than us, but they did have more. They were 2 for 2 on 4th down, which obviously you don't want to see, but it didn't really affect the outcome of the game.
I wonder how New England fans would handle the situation that the Chiefs are in right now, with all the Chiefs fans bitching and moaning about how they got fucked over with the whole situation that the game got canceled. I wonder if the Patriots were in that situation, would they be saying the same shit about putting an asterisk next to us if we won it all?
Well, they have their own asterisk
in
the history of the NFL.
You can't spell asterisk without a big old ass in Chief Kingdom right now.
So Jones didn't do bad. He was 26 of 40 for 243, but with those 3 touchdowns came 3 interceptions. The guy that roasted us the most was Devontae Parker, who he was a first rounder. He's nice. He's not bad. Mac Jones' QBR was 75 to Allen's 106. So obviously there's a discrepancy there.
Yeah.
Parker had 79 yards with those touchdowns. Kendrick Bourne, 4 or 5, 45 yards. Hunter Henry, they kept going back to him, but they were chipping away, 45 yards on 42 yards on 6 catches. And then Jacoby Myers was 3 of 7 for 32 yards in the other touchdown. And Stevenson, he got 5 receptions for 28 yards. It's nice, but it's not really a great average, because he's coming out of the backfield.
Despite Matt Patricia's best effort, Mac Jones had a pretty good game.
He did. It's just those interceptions that were obviously costly, and Milano's to seal the game was nice. Rushing, Stevenson is a good running back. He's solid. He had a 9-yard average, so only 6 carries for 54 yards. They just couldn't afford to keep doing that. They weren't going to pull the Packers and just run up the clock that way. Harris had 13 rushes, so he had more rushes for less yards at 48, 3.7 yards a carry. He had a 19-yard breakaway, and Stevenson had 18 yards for a long. But overall, I mean, Mac Jones had 4 carries for 5 yards. So their rushing, it was effective when they used it, but overall didn't do much. And their special teams, I mean, Nick Folk is what he is. He was 1 of 1 for field goals and 2 of 2 extra points. Their punter punted it 4 times, averaged 40 yards. Marcus Jones, who's the guy that scored on us last time we played them, he's the DB number 25, who's now doing kick returns and punt returns. He was held in check. That was nice to see.
Mm-hmm.
And there were only 4 penalties in this game, 2 on each team. It was, 4 accepted penalties. There were more that offset or just, were declined.
They let them play.
They did let them play. Yeah, it was nice to see for sure. But that's a recap for the Bills. They won 35-23. What more can you ask for? They knock out the Patriots.
Emotional week. You wondered how they were going to respond.
Yeah. I think Belichick's just aware that his team was nowhere near as good as the Bills. He did everything he could. It was a valiant effort. It just wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough with the momentum and the kickoff return to start the game, which set the tone.
Just feels good to have the Patriots number for once now.
Yeah, we knocked them out 2 years in a row.
It was
just like the Chiefs have had our number.
Of them having our number.
Yeah.
And I don't want the Chiefs to have our number for 3 years in a row.
No, I do not. We'll see them again if we keep it up.
Oh, I can't wait.
And it'll be in a neutral territory, which could be Atlanta.
Can't wait.
That's what they're saying right now.
Can't wait.
It's about 900 miles for both teams. The Bills said they were willing to go to Pittsburgh because that's where Hamlin went. That would be amazing. And they were willing to do Indianapolis, but there was something going on with like a cheerleading competition or volleyball competition. But anyway, neither here nor there. We'll find out.
If we get there.
If we get there, we don't want the cart to get too far ahead of the horse.
It's playoff time. I'm ready for heartbreak.
It is.
I'm ready to potentially get my heart broken again.
Let's go over some of these other matchups here real quick. We had our predictions, and for the most part, we did all right. But there were some upsets or some things that we weren't expecting. KC beat the Raiders 31-13. Minnesota beat the Bears 29-13 with Nathan Peterman playing. You kind of expected that to happen. You called for the Jets to upset Miami, which was a barn burner, and then at the end there was a weird toss back. They're trying to, desperately get a touchdown, and then they got safety.
Yeah,
so
it was the old baseball score.
Yep. And then Denver actually took it to the Chargers, who had their starters out there, and they won 31-28. So right at the end of the year, Wilson finally started doing something for that team, which happens to coincide with them firing Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of overreaction probably on the Chargers side, but division game, a Denver team that had been playing very, very good football over the last 2-3 weeks, that took the Chiefs to the edge twice.
Yep.
Well, not so much the second time that they faced them, but first time
mostly their defense. And in this game, they won 31-28, so they obviously scored 31.
That division, there's always those really close games, and even though Denver's been so putrid most of the year, I wouldn't overreact too much to that. Not having Mike Williams for the Chargers could be huge, but they still got Justin Herbert, so he's going to give him a chance.
Yep. All right. Then we had Seattle, who actually you said was going to lose to the Rams. You're hoping they'd play upset with Baker. It didn't happen. It was 19-16.
Did I call that?
You did.
I'm going to take the Rams. I think they're...
Okay. I still pick Seattle, but the Rams very much could take that. Either way, it doesn't matter. They don't count for anything.
Must have had too many Labats.
Well, so the Seahawks won, and... you got to give it to Pete Carroll. He's 71 years old and out there chewing his gum and getting Geno Smith into the playoffs. And how cool.
Geno
good for
Smith,
them.
franchise record for completion percentage and I believe total yards in a season.
Beats Russell Wilson.
Seahawks.
Huh?
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And then
he didn't write back.
Then Jacksonville beat Tennessee 20-16. So Lawrence goes into the playoffs with, I think, a 5-game win streak. And Cincinnati beats Baltimore, their division rival. And they're both in the playoffs, and they see each other back-to-back weeks. But Baltimore is likely to be without Lamar, so we'll see where that goes. Carolina over New Orleans, 10-7.
Another snoozer.
We didn't care about that game.
Another snoozer. It was another baseball score. Jeez.
And Hurts was back.
Is it the NFL or the MLB? I can't see real good.
Hurts was back for Philadelphia, and they beat the Giants 22-16. And now in the playoffs, we'll see. Both of those teams are making the playoffs. We'll see what happens. You called for Dallas to beat Washington. Dak Prescott, once again, led the league with turnovers, and he played the least amount of games. Pretty wild. But him and Davis Mills threw 15 interceptions this year.
God, if I could be a fly on the wall in Jerry Jones's box watching that game.
I know.
In the suite there, I can't imagine what words he was uttering.
Well, the Commanders won 26-6. It wasn't even close. And then we get to Tampa playing Atlanta. Atlanta took it to them 30-17. Algier had a good game. Desmond Ridder had a good game.
Tyler Algier got dropped by a lot of fantasy players halfway through the season. The ones that held on to him, he came on strong.
He'll be drafted next year. And Patterson, who's still getting some touches, he's not as dominant as he was last year. That was really unexpected. Tom Brady, who makes the playoffs again for his third straight year with the Bucs and like 20th overall, he has his first losing record ever. Isn't that crazy?
Wild.
Yeah.
And he's going against the Cowboys, who he's 7-0 against all time.
7-0 all time. Good stat.
Weekend,
you're right. Yeah. Yep. And then Houston, they lost their number 1 overall pick, and they gave it up to Chicago because Chicago lost, and Houston ended up beating the Colts 32-21.
Was it? It
was 31.
It was 31. It was a 1-point game. It was a last second.
That was a typo.
Yep.
32-31 over the Colts. And then we already mentioned that Tomlin now secures his 16th consecutive season without a losing record.
Future Hall of Famer.
They beat the Browns 28-14. The Niners beat Arizona.
Took care of business.
38-13 with Brock, who's now 5-0 as a starter. Mr. Irrelevant is suddenly very relevant. And the last game was Detroit beating Green Bay.
Aaron Rodgers, the week before this game, he got to be smiling ear to ear, talking with what's-her-name at the end of the game. And he's like, everyone wrote us off, and now what are y'all going to say? Yeah. And then all that just to lay a an egg against the Lions. But shout out to the Lions.
Yeah, the Lions were well coached, motivated. Jamal
Still
Williams,
won't ever forgive them for the defense that gave me negative 10 points in the fantasy semifinals, but shout out to him for this. Jared Goff playing out of his mind right now.
Jamal Williams, who used to play for the Packers, he said, "We're the Lions, all right? Don't talk negative about the Lions." Like, his post-game interview was amazing. But he now sets a franchise record with 17 rushing touchdowns to beat Barry Sanders, who had 16.
One more round of applause. That's a pretty big deal. Barry Sanders beating that record.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. And so that rounds up the recap for Week 18. We're going to talk about our matchup with the Miami Dolphins, and we're going to recap the entire NFL regular season as well. Right now, I'm going to go over my Josh Allen card, which just came in.
Dang.
This is the 2022 Panini Absolute Football Explosive.
I got to get me one of them.
This one's pristine, too. It's very nice. I'm excited. It's got like that kaboom shimmer to it. I love it. What do you have?
Damn. It's so beautiful.
You notice how I seamlessly put it back without knocking it over?
Yeah, fuck off. I got the 2022 Panini Classics Football Josh Allen, numbered 88-99.
That's
got the gold shimmer.
Yeah, it's a timeless tribute gold shimmer. And you said 88/99.
Look at that.
Beautiful. That's the 2022 Classics. Sweet. Well, Greg, what would you like to say to Bills Mafia as we end
Get
this
you
video?
some of that, son. Woo! Bills Mafia, thank you, obviously, for showing out at the stadium for that epic game. I'm so sad that I couldn't have experienced how loud it got after that Nyheim Hines kick return to open up the game. If I seriously would sell thousands of dollars worth of my Allen cards to go back in time and be a part of that.
Mark my words, if the Bills win the Super Bowl or make it there this year,
well,
I will sell a couple of the rookie autos and go to that game.
I want to either go to the title game or the Super Bowl. That's really what I want to do if we make it that far.
What do you want to say to Bills Mafia?
Shout out to Bills Mafia for representing, as always, for that season finale. There was, I've heard some fans say that it's the loudest that they've ever heard the stadium, and fans that have been going there for 30 plus years. I can only imagine. Yeah. And again, you can't do it justice unless you were there in person. Even if you have the audio on your phone or like the broadcast, like it doesn't mimic being there and hearing that. So shout out to you guys. What an epic win. And now the real tournament obviously starts. Now everything resets, and now we have the actual month of football to try to get the ultimate prize in the NFL. So let's go Bills Mafia. Get those tables ready. That's all I got to say. Ready the tables.
I'm just grateful that we have Sean McDermott as a head coach who now has been with the team for 6 years as of this week. And he's a leader of men. He's brought this franchise new hope. And they've been to the playoffs, 4 of the last 5 years. It's just amazing. I'm excited. And 5 of the last 6 years, isn't it?
Yes, 17.
Wow.
So
17, 19, 20, 21, 22. I'm just grateful. And with that, that's episode 30 of The House That Allen Built. I'm Scott Kinmartin. With me, as always,
Greg Vollmer.
Let's go!
Go Buffalo! All right.
I just licked your hand. Do you like how we took over your blanket? Like, you brought this for this, and it's been on the set the whole time?
Yeah, it's about time I get myself a new Bills blanket.
You've had this for what, 30 years? 25?
This is one of the first things I ever got. I remember getting it at my grandma's in Bismarck, North Dakota for Christmas, and my dad and I played like fake football on it. After we got it, we put it on the floor because it had the field.
Oh, yeah. It's literally got all the numbers.
Yeah.
All the way across. That's cool.
Do you have anything you want to say real quick? Oh, yeah!
No? You see the little dots?
Oh! No more crudeness in the bloopers. My mama didn't like it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Mama didn't raise no fool.
What mama don't know, don't hurt her. Let's get ready to rumble.
If you're not going to drink that water right now, you don't need it on camera, right? Okay, you're on camera. You're not leaning too... Here, I'll move this way just a little bit. So we're a little more centered. Perfect. You're beautiful. Jesus.
Oh, that's good.
That is so loud.
Have you heard of Pearl Harbor? Harbor? Screw the Alamo. You heard of Pearl Harbor? It was awfully bold of that hater that sent us that horrible message. It was awfully bold of him to assume we were going to have 2 or 3 seasons of this.
Bills? It's Buffalo Bills.
The Bills run.
The
Buffalo runs the East.
All right.
Back to back to
To
back.
back.
AFC East beasts.
Super Bowl. Is this what went on? Was this 92? Super Bowl 26? Yep. That was against
In Minnesota.
Minnesota. That was against the Redskins. I'm sorry, the Commanders.
And that was when our dumbass defensive coordinator was talking about the Hogs offensive line, and they got angry and took it to us. That's, he learned his lesson about why you don't give bulletin board material to a dude that
Well,
wasn't
I was
even
hoping we
playing.
could take it to Cincinnati and do the same thing, but that never happened. All right. We're going to have a chance, though. I honestly think that we're going to...
meet. Oh, yeah.
Dude, hold on. Do you see? Like, you got to look in the mirror once in a while.
Yeah, like, I suppose I should invest in something to get rid of the old ear here, but... Come on, man. All right. Oh,
Does that hurt?
yeah.
Did I get your skin?
No, it's just a lot of hair.
Just grab in there and feel
What
for
happens,
it.
man? I'm almost 35.
Oh, I'm 40, dude. Come on. Cry me a river. Ooh. Welcome back to another edition of the House that Allen Built. This is episode 30.
Oh.
I'm Scott Kinmartin. With me, as always. You don't want to do that?
Restart. All right. Yeah.
All right.
My prediction was 35 to...
Nope.
Oh,
Start
excuse
over.
me.
Did evaluations and testing. Come to find out, he got released and is now back home. 4 or 5?
No, 5 of the last 6, right? Okay.
I can't believe we can't do math.
Wait, no, okay.
Hold on. 17,
That ended,
19,
17 ended.
20, 21, 22. Yeah, 5 of the last
Yes.
6.